today I have invited Nina, and I have invited Nina for this episode to talk about networking and how to reach out to people. And the reason I did this was because we don't know each other. So she's also thank you so much, by the way, for saying yes to this, Nina.
Happy to be here.
But I saw a post on LinkedIn about how you just reached out to people. And I was like, this is so amazing. It's what I keep telling people to do. And it's one of the things that I get from my clients again and again and again, how hard it is. And I also
Mhm.
know that there's something about what kind of person are you? And I've said this multiple times that I'm very extroverted. So for me, it's not really an issue to like, hey, see me, I'm here, right? But for other people, it is. So just giving the viewers and listeners to this some inspiration of what to do would be so freaking amazing. Before we do that, can you tell us a little bit about who are you, Nina, and then tell us a story about the post because you also told me that that post was actually doing really well on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah. Diana, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for reaching out after the post. I'm really happy to share this story in full length rather than just kind of the snippet that I shared on LinkedIn. So, yeah, for some context, I'm a scientist by training. So, I have a PhD in pharmaceutical science. I'm an entrepreneur. So, sometimes I call myself a sidepreneur. And I moved from I'm American, so that also can maybe give some context to reaching out and networking because we are also known to be quite extroverted and outgoing when it comes to these types of things. And after my PhD, I worked in Silicon Valley for several years and then decided to start my own business. And that moved me to Europe. And it was really this I wanted to have a European chapter of my life, but it was also a really big risk and a big step. I got into a startup accelerator in Berlin and just put my whole life into three bags, got on a plane, and decided to do that.
That's amazing.
And yeah, so it was terrifying and amazing and everything in between and an exponential learning curve for me as an entrepreneur. And since then, I've now been in Europe for 7 years and I currently live in Lisbon. So I have quite a bit of experience moving from city to city and having to rebuild my entire network from scratch, whether that was when I went to college on the East Coast, grad school in Southern Arizona, going back to San Francisco, going to Berlin, going now to Lisbon. And so I wrote this post. Maybe it was a month ago or something. It's a picture of me pushing my three bags into SFO airport and saying, I moved to Europe with no network. And here's what I did when I got there. And what I did was I basically landed in Berlin. I knew I was going to start a biotech company. I was in this startup accelerator. And I really wanted to understand how, like, what does the biotech ecosystem look like in Berlin? This was in 2019. And and so my co-founder and I, we were both scientists, and I was like, let's just message all of the founders of biotech companies in Berlin. Like, like how many are there? There were not many. There
Okay.
were about yeah, which is wild. Now I think that number would be 10x the current number. But at the time, at least through my Googling and my LinkedIn searching, I found about 20 or 30. And so I just DM'd the CEO or the founder of each biotech company and said, "Hey, I'm new to Berlin. I'm going to be starting a biotech company. Would you mind sharing your experience with me of how it was to start a company here?" And almost pretty, I would say maybe like 8 out of 10 messaged me back and they said, "Hey, sure, let's have a coffee." They were also curious of like, what's this American girl doing in Berlin? So it's also interesting when you have a bit of a story to tell. And it was really, really insightful as well because I really didn't understand what the fundraising atmosphere looked like in Berlin, what it would be like to rent a lab. That was actually a big incentive of me to reach out to all of the founders was just how am I going to logistically do this? How am I going to start my lab here? What's that going to look like? And it was really I was shocked at how friendly or the response, just how willing everyone was to share their time with me. And some of those founders I'm still in touch with today. Some have also relocated to Lisbon, and I invite them to events that I host. So these things really compound. And yeah, I think it's just you're really always surprised by how willing people are to share their time.
Yeah. That's freaking amazing. There's so many things to dive into in that story, the first thing I do want, I'm gonna kind of take the most recent question time-wise,
Mhm.
and then I'm gonna go back to some of the other things you said. But I'm just curious, in terms of the post you then created on LinkedIn, how many new connections, how many outreach do you think you've created based on that post?
So through that one post, I got 1,000 new followers in 2 days,
Yeah.
which was crazy. That was the most viral post I've ever had. I post every day. For everyone listening, I post every day on LinkedIn at 9 a.m. I talk about founder life. I talk about science. I also write a newsletter about health, longevity, and psychedelics. So you also see my newsletter being posted at 9 a.m. So I post on a wide variety of topics, but also things that happened in my personal life, like when I moved. But that was the most viral post I've ever had. I was really surprised by how many people were. Some people were like, "Oh, that's so amazing that you went out and did that." Some others were like, "I don't think that would work in my country." And so I would chat with them. I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? Why do you think that?" And and even some people that were in Germany, they're like, "No, that's just not our culture." But that's why it works, because it's not. And
Yeah.
they're surprised, and they don't expect that, like a cold message from somebody asking for their time. And then if they don't want to talk to you, they just don't reply.
They'll just ignore you.
Fine.
Yeah, exactly. Or
Yeah, it's
they'll say
okay.
like, I don't have time. I'm sorry.
Right.
And that's also
That,
fine, right? I
yeah,
think,
absolutely. Like there's no obligation to meet with me. You can ignore me, you can say no. It would be nice to say no. I appreciate when someone says no a lot more than ghosting the reply.
yeah.
But in general, I don't expect everybody to want to have the time to chat,
Mm.
but I would just say more often than not, people are very willing to give you their time.
Yeah. And I think there's a really important psychological part to this that we're talking about now, which is that remember that the no's or the ghosting is not about you.
Yeah.
It is about the person in the other end, either not
Hmm.
having the time, not
Yeah.
having the interest in what you are talking about, not being active on LinkedIn, even though they have a
Yeah.
profile there. There can be
Yeah.
so many explanations. The only explanation that's not true is that it's about you, because it's not.
Yeah.
Like 99.99% of the time, it's not
Yeah.
about you.
Absolutely. Because I've also been on the receiving end. So people get inspired by my post and then they reach out to me. And as much as I appreciate that, sometimes I'm quite flooded with responses if it's in conjunction with something that happened recently like this. And I know I'm even bad about replying. And I'm here trying to reply to every message as best I can. And some still slip through the cracks. And I always apologize. I'm like, my LinkedIn is a jungle. I try to manage it. But and then the other trick, which maybe you've shared with your audience before, you can reach out to somebody 7 times. Like the marketing research has been done. You can message somebody 7 times before they basically tell you, hey, get lost. So you don't necessarily want to get that far, but if you do want to get a no, like if you're selling something, you want to get the no. And a lot of times the reaction after maybe two or three, maybe even the fourth message is like, oh my God, I've been meaning to email you back, but I haven't been able to. Thank you for continuing to email me, because it pumps it back up into the inbox. So, as much as you think that you're being really annoying, it actually can turn into the call that you wanted to have.
Yeah. I so agree. And a little extra tip on that, because first of all, people almost never follow up. That's the first thing, right? So
Yep.
thank you for bringing that up, because you're absolutely right on that. But also maybe then whenever you kind of follow up, add extra value. Give a
Hmm.
little bit more every time, because the more you can do that, the more you can kind of, and value can be these small things. It can be a compliment. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be, oh, by the way, here's a whole dissertation about how much I love your work or
Yeah.
whatever, right? It can
Yeah.
be, hey, since I wrote you last, I saw this post you did on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
I thought it was super amazing, right?
Yeah.
So it can be these small things. So yeah, definitely. I want to
Yeah,
say like,
I echo that a lot. It's really just a compliment and keeping the message really short.
yeah.
A lot of times, I think in the LinkedIn post, I even said it's just like, "Hey, I'm Nina. I'm new to Berlin. I'm going to be setting up a company here. I want to hear about your experience doing that. Do you have 10 minutes?" And everyone gives you an hour. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So, but that's it. Keep it short, like 150 characters. Compliment them or address that you know what they are doing. It's like, you're a founder, I'm a founder. We don't have a lot of time. Let's just get down to the point, and it works.
Yeah, it really does. And I want to go, like I said, I want to go a little bit back as well to your
Sure.
story in terms of, we're gonna just be like going everywhere here
That's
because
fine.
that's so interesting. No, because I think there's a thing here that a lot of the viewers and listeners of my content will be interested in, and that is the part about being new, right? Because my core audience are internationals in Denmark.
Yeah.
So and I know you didn't move to Denmark again, but and there's a lot of difference between just Berlin and Denmark,
Oh
but
yeah, for
the
sure.
whole like experience of also just moving like three bags and then like, hey, here I come. Amazing.
Hmm.
How did you kind of like go into that? Like, what did you, other than think, okay, now I'm gonna go on LinkedIn and write these people, but how did you navigate coming to Berlin and like starting up in general?
Oh, such a loaded question because there's so much complexity there. There's a part of it where it was easy for me in a sense because got into this startup accelerator. So I immediately had a structure.
Mm.
So it was okay, I'm going into this accelerator. There's 50 other like entrepreneurs or people who want to be entrepreneurs that we're going to be sharing this office space together. Quite a few were international. We'd been recruited from all over Europe, me from the US, I was the only American, in Germany. And so everyone had moved to Berlin for this program. And we were going to be together for somewhere between 6 weeks and 6 months, depending on how you advance through the program. So I had a bit of a community and I had some structure there. So maybe some of your listeners, they moved to Denmark because they are taking a job. So they have a bit of a community around that job that they're able to meet with in person or something like this. So that helps at least kind of like ground you where you're like, okay, I have like two friends. I'm going to be okay. Uh, and then navigating all of the language barrier. I moved to Germany with zero German and was teaching myself German on the side while trying to like start my company and all my all the documents for company incorporation are only in German. Not some other countries, maybe Denmark offers them in two or more languages, which would be really helpful to the international entrepreneurial community.
Agree.
Yes, and so a lot of my German vocabulary was actually words that no one uses in real life because they're just written legal words. Um, so at least I could read some of these things, or I knew what it was a tax form instead of something else. Um, but one thing I did do was that I'm a runner. And so one of the first things I did as well was joining a running club and getting just a community. And also another thing that was like anchoring into my week. So it was like every Wednesday I go running with a running club called Midnight Runners. And we don't run at midnight, but we run at night. That's super fun. It's music. It's a wonderful community. And that kept my sanity because it was just this really fun loving group of people and I was like if I could just get through Wednesday and I could get to Midnight Runners the rest of the week we'll be good to go. So that also was there were lots of entrepreneurs in Midnight Runners as well. So I was telling people what I was working on and they were like, "Oh, you need to meet this person, this person, this person." And some of my closest friends are actually from the running club that have now started companies and I'm like an advisor to their companies, which is wild. We're like ran together 7 years ago. So I think finding different communities or different hobbies that you like to do in the new city is tremendously helpful. Like, so outside of work, so that not all of your social bubble is just around work. And whether that's, I also do ceramics. So finding a ceramic studio, you could talk to the people at the ceramic studio. And I think at least in Lisbon and in Berlin as well, the language barrier around hobbies just seemed less. Or like I found that more people were comfortable speaking English in those settings.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, so I think that was kind of how I made the landing a little softer for myself.
Mhm. I think it's a really good point. A lot of the people here also come as what they call plus ones. I don't
Mm,
really like
hmm.
that term, but then they don't have that social bubble of work, right?
Yeah.
They come with their spouse who has a job, who gets that social work bubble. So as soon as you get here, and I know there's going to be like kids that needs to a lot of the time at least get like to put into school or whatever institution for daycare or what it is, but then the typically the moms, not always,
Hmm.
but or the dads, the spouse, are they're taking care of all of that, but not really
Hmm.
building something for themselves. So I think it's a really
Yeah.
good point to kind of go out and find a hobby, find networking, find
Yeah.
a community, volunteering,
Yeah.
something where you can kind of meet people. And if it's hard to get out of the house in the beginning, then start with something online. Like
Mhm.
that can get you just like seeing other people basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Keep
I could tell you about another. I know I'm going to derail this conversation
No,
probably
go
several times,
ahead.
but I can tell you about another experiment I did during the pandemic. I was going absolutely crazy because, we're all online and I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm basically just at home by myself working all
Yeah.
the time. And so I put out on LinkedIn, this would have been in 2020. I put out on LinkedIn, I said, hey, I'm opening up my calendar for virtual coffees. Here's my Calendly link, book in if you want to. I'm looking to talk to other founders. And I filled up 50 days with 50 coffees, like pretty quickly, and just had these 30-minute coffees with other entrepreneurs and just asking them, how they're doing in the pandemic or and it was really interesting. I ended up writing a short article about it that's on my blog where I said I had 50 coffees with 50 founders in 50 days and here's what I learned. And that was one of I think my very first kind of viral posts. And we talked about it was really early stage. I kept all the statistics for like like gender and what stage the company was at if they were fundraising and just made a nice little infographic about it. You could find it on my
You're
blog.
being very
Uh,
scientific about it. That's
yeah,
what I'm hearing.
absolutely. And yeah, we talked about just kind of challenges that we were all facing at this time. And so I've now seen other people doing this type of interaction. So that is something that somebody could do online if they want to try and do it on their LinkedIn or if they want to reach out to other type of like Instagram communities or Facebook communities. If there are other, yeah, I think people in their area that aren't able to get out of the house. They don't have so much flexibility. Maybe they have a newborn at home and they're just not. We're not going out too much yet. That could be an option, as well as something to do to kind of like network and connect. And when you don't want something in return, that also sometimes helps make it a little bit less intense to connect with somebody because a lot of times people are like, oh, what does this person want from me? But sometimes like, okay, yeah, I'm open to having like, I don't know, like let's meet this person. Maybe they're really interesting, and most likely they are. Everyone's interesting
Yes, I
when you really
agree.
give them the time. Yeah.
Yeah. What's a good so if people were to okay, there's two sides to this question. So one is what is the kind of message you said short message that you had most success sending? That's the one thing. And then the other side of the coin, what kind of messages do you respond to yourself?
Okay. So the messages that I have the most success sending, it's like 150 characters. It's really like and I put it in the connection request to that
Mm,
person on LinkedIn.
okay.
So it's, hi, I'm Nina. I I want to connect with you because we have this shared interest. And it's always like, do you have 10 minutes for a call? That's always what I ask.
So
It's
you
something
always
about
have the ask
I
in
always
already
in
the
the
request.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then if they connect, but they don't message you back, then you message them again and you said, hey, thanks so much for adding me. When are you free for those 10 minutes? And then if they still don't reply, it's just like, hey, maybe this got lost in your inbox. Are you still up to have a quick call? And then maybe by then they're going to reply to you. But sometimes they reply straight away. But it's really about keeping it short. Okay, say I was doing some type of like market research for a product. I would say like, hey, I'm Nina, Diana. I know that you have a lot, or I know that you run a podcast for like career coaching. I'd love to hear more. Or you're an expert in career coaching. I have a couple questions for you. Do you have 10 minutes? That's it. Um, but keeping it really, really short is, I can't emphasize this enough because I do not reply to messages where I have to scroll. If I open your message and it is not just the small pop-up text box on LinkedIn, email as well. If I am scrolling, you've lost my interest.
Interesting.
So, what happens a lot with AI generated content or automated messages that are going out for sale in like sales platforms, it's it's spaced out too much too. It's like, hey, Nina, I noticed you're interested in gets my focus wrong. Block. We have a tool where are you looking for web developers? We have expertise in blah 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 blah. Next paragraph. We do this, that. Disinterested.
Mm.
First off, you didn't read my profile, so you don't actually know what I do. Second, it's too much text. I don't actually know what you want, and you're trying to sell me something. So no, I'm not keen on it. I mentor a lot of scientists that want to be entrepreneurs, and this is a big mistake that happens with them very, very often, is that they think they have to give all of this context of why they are reaching out. And you really don't. You just have to be like, Diana, I saw online that you're an expert in careers. Like, let's talk about careers, or how to get people to be more, outgoing when they're networking. That's it. And then if you pique their interest, they're going to get back to you. If they haven't, then you just ask them again for 10 minutes.
But you know what? Um, I love that you put it. Normally, I actually don't necessarily encourage people to write that request in the message. But I love your approach to it because it also means that they technically say yes when they accept the connection request. So
Yeah.
psychologically, when they accept, they're like, well, I already said yes, right? So for when you then do the follow-up, when you're saying like, hey, so when can we do that, right? Because they've already
Hmm.
approved that request, right?
Yeah.
And if they don't have the time, but you're still an interesting profile, my guess would be that they would get back and say, thank you so much for connecting. I'm sorry, at the moment, I don't really have a lot of time available. Can you reach out again in 3 to 6 months or something like that?
Yeah. 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 I think that's actually, I hadn't engineered it to that level, but I like that you bring that up because it is true. It's like you accepted my connection request. I'm actually asking to connect with you in not in real life and in virtual life or whatever. So it's one step. Yeah. It's killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah, it's for that specific reason, right?
Yeah.
So you're giving it that more, you're already adding more value to the connection request because there's already the kind of next step. It
Yeah.
doesn't kind of, a lot of the times when I get requests for connecting, people don't write anything.
Yeah.
And that's also okay with me. I don't mind, but then I hear nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like then you could just as well have just followed me,
True.
basically, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to create the connections to create the relationships. And
Yeah.
that's actually also something that I would love your take on in terms of networking and slash versus relationship creation, because
Mm.
there is this whole like we need to network, 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 and that's so important in Denmark because a lot of jobs are given through networking, right?
Yeah.
But what is your like what's the difference for you in terms of networking and creating relationships?
Mm. I probably sit more in the camp of relationship building because, for example, I really hate conferences.
Mm.
For being someone who's very extroverted and I love public speaking and I'm usually on a panel or on stage, I really don't like the let's call it the networking part of a conference. So I
Okay.
usually set myself some goal where it's a very low number. It's like I'm going to go to the conference today and I'm going to meet two new people. Well, some of my friends go in there, they have a list. And they're like, these are the 25 people or 50 people I want to meet today. And that, in my case, that's networking. 50 people, they're going to have such a brief interaction with that person because even if they find them, they're not going to be able to go in depth. I have this goal where I'm saying, okay, I'm going to meet two people and I will most likely talk to that person for a very long time when I do find them. Maybe it's like if I do find them and they're having lunch, I join them at the lunch table and we sit there for maybe an hour and chat. So, but by the time I'm kind of finished with my checklist of I've met two people, I'm pretty tired and I don't have the energy to go around and network. I also believe a little bit in serendipity that the right people spontaneously somehow find you
Mhm.
and or maybe they're sent over to you by someone else that's looking out for you. I'm not sure. But I was at an event I'm a venture partner for a venture fund here in Lisbon called Bayes Impact, and it was their 12th anniversary last Friday, and I 2 Fridays ago, and it was a brunch. It was at like 8:45 in the morning, and I did not have a lot of time. I had a call at 9:45, so I was only going to be there for 20 minutes. And I'm over there with my coffee. I'm like really quickly eating this yogurt, and this woman comes over to me and she's like, "Hey Nina, like I'm Marta." And I was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "Oh, I'm from Fidelidad, which is a health insurance here." And I was like, "Marta from Fidelidad, I've been meaning to talk to you for 2 months. Like, I am so excited that you came over to chat with me right now." And then that was it. And I was like, "Okay, I did what I needed to do here." So I think there's a serendipity about it, but now it's like I have her contact info. We chatted for, the whole 20 minutes I was there, rather than me kind of saying brief hellos to everyone I need to talk to. So that's my stance. It's like I'd rather go deeper.
Mhm.
And then those people will amplify your message to other people because they know a bit more about you. I think when you try to meet everybody, it doesn't work out for me.
No, but I think it makes sense, and it's also what I'm seeing as more and more important is the value of creating those relationships deeper, right?
Yeah.
And also what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's maybe also about having a list of people not necessarily connected to a specific event, but really have done your research just in terms of the people you really want to meet and connect with, like having this. So within the next, basically having like, I don't know if a vision board is too broad of a term for it, but having this like, these are the people that I would love to kind of connect with within the next year because they would
Hmm.
be amazing to share knowledge with or get to know more about. And then putting it, and again, depending on how spiritual you are, whatever, putting it out into the universe, writing it down, but then having
Yep.
that like come back to you because also then, and I think this is an important part as well, that letting other people know that
Yes.
you
Yeah.
that you would love to talk to this and this person in the
Yes.
situations where it makes sense because like you said, the more they know about you, the more they can send people your way as well.
Yes.
So I think
Yes.
that makes a
This
lot of sense.
that this that's such a good point, Diana, because really a lot of times, okay, in like the entrepreneur world, we get connected to a lot of investors, and investors always want to help us. And sometimes we don't know what to ask them for other than money. But introductions is the perfect one. So if you do have an idea of other entrepreneurs you'd like to meet, or other, I don't know, maybe other investors you'd like to meet, and then you know that they're connected to them on LinkedIn, or however you know this, then you can ask them for that intro. And if they feel comfortable doing it, they'll do it for you. Or they can look out for that in the future where it might make sense, where they're like, oh, yeah, I know they're going to be at that event that you're going to be at next week. I think that's a really, really, really good point. And Americans, we love introducing people to other people.
Mhm.
What I did recognize when I moved to Germany was that this wasn't exactly the case anymore. People held their network very close to their heart and didn't. Some offered more introductions than others. I I think as Americans, we sort of have this belief that, okay, if I introduce someone to someone else, it's now on the person I introduced to take that connection further. And if they don't, it's not going to reflect poorly on me as the introducer. It's going to reflect poorly on the person that did not do anything with that intro.
Mhm.
I think that that's sort of, at least that's my philosophy. And I think that comes from American culture. In Germany, they take it a little bit more, oh, okay, if Nina doesn't do well in this interaction that I made this introduction, it's going to reflect poorly on
Yeah.
me as the introducer of Nina to that person. And I do see my mindset after 7 years in Europe has shifted a little bit, and I'm a bit more careful sometimes where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm more reluctant to introduce this person to someone, just because I know that that person, it would reflect poorly on me. And you have to know a little bit about your network for this as well. So the more you build your relationships, the more you understand how somebody's going to view that, or how they're going to handle a bad introduction, if they're going to take it gracefully, if they're going to be like, Nina, that person never emailed me back. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
And then I have to go hound the person. It's just like, hey, I'm not going to make introductions for you if you don't reply to them,
Mm.
you know? So you also have to, you're nurturing your relationships as well. When, if I make an introduction for you, and that's a very high value connection to the person I introduced you to, this helps all of us. And so you have to participate in
You
this relationship building.
and yes, and I so okay. Oh, there's so many things, but I think it's so. I think it's you're right that there is definitely a difference in how it's perceived,
Yes.
and it also goes to when you're the one being introduced. Remember that this is other people adding value. We're always talking about how to add value because I have this like when you're looking for a new job, the company doesn't care about you until you've shown the value you can bring,
Hmm.
right? And how can you bring value? But the value can be in these small, small things, right? Like a compliment that you're saying, or like introducing people, but it has
Hmm.
to make sense, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will usually say to people, you're welcome to look at my network and I don't mind introducing you, but then my introduction the way I introduce people depends on the level of trust and connection and relationship I have with that person, of course.
Yeah.
So that's how I think I take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just think that's interesting. And then I was thinking about when you're saying about like in terms of the culture in the US, and then I can't really compare to Germany because not German, but in terms of
Hmm.
Denmark, that there's this thing that when you're talking about it's really, really hard to get to know Danes. For some reason, we are closed off as fuck.
Mm.
And I'm not I'm not proud of it, but that's apparently a thing. But what I realized working in this industry myself is that yes, we're super closed off at a personal level. But when we're in a professional setting, we are
Mm.
super open and we're super like, yeah, let's go for a coffee, let's go to a cafe, let's like go for a walk and talk and drink. And there's all this like some cultures like, but that would be like going on a date. It's like, what are you talking about, right? But it's so important to be aware of those cultural differences, right? In terms of
Yep.
no, no, that's not it, right?
Hmm.
So when you're kind of looking at also who are you then trying to connect with? Who is it that you are trying to talk to, even though they're in Denmark? Is this a person from the US? Is this a person from China, from India, from Africa, wherever they're from? And take that into account a little bit as well, and how long they've been in Denmark. Because if they've been in
Hmm.
Denmark for 20 years, they're used to the Danish
Yep.
like culture about this, right? I want to touch a little bit upon if this is okay with you, because I was thinking about mentoring. You didn't
Hmm.
specifically mention that, but it got me thinking what you said. And how would you approach if you found someone where you're like, this, I would really, and I'm going to make this question two part as well. So from both sides, as in, how would you approach it if you were looking for someone that you would love to be your mentor? And
Mm.
also, how would you react to someone reaching, or how should someone reach out to you to actually, and I'm asking both sides because I feel like it's not necessarily the same answer.
Yes, yeah, I'm with you. I think it is a little bit different. So I'll answer on my side first. So I'm quite public that I am a mentor to founders or ambitious professionals who might be wanting to take that leap into entrepreneurship. You can find it on my website. There's links to be able to get in touch with me to be able to do that. And
Okay.
then we can have an introductory call. So it can come quite cold. Um, so that's one way that if people do mentor quite publicly, it's very easy to identify that. They might even have it in their LinkedIn bio somewhere. Um, some of the founders that I first started mentoring, it really evolved out of just a genuine friendship. And it was us having coffees every week, just talking about the company building experience because I was a little further along in the journey than my friends at the time. And I still get calls from friends from time to time that just want to talk through some issue. And it's not a formalized mentoring agreement by any means. If it's coming through my website, I try to be a bit more formal and structured about what that person's goals are. If they're friends of mine or people I've met through my career, it's more like ad hoc. I think it is really, really important to have. people in your life that are a little further along with you than you in your journey that you can ask these sorts of questions to, whether that's a formalized mentorship or not. Now, going into how do I find my mentors? Sometimes it is through introductions. So sometimes it is communities I'm a part of, and I say, "Hey, I'm looking for, a marketing advisor or mentor or somebody to just guide me through some questions." And people will usually introduce me to somebody, and you have a couple calls with them. And then if you want to take that relationship more formally, you then would ask for that. But normally it's having kind of one or two calls. You see if that person is interested in what you're working on. And then you also see if you like the advice they're giving you is very important because I think there's sometimes a difference between you don't want to always be in an echo chamber, but you do want to like what that person has to say. And sometimes we hire people to be the opposite of that.
Yeah.
It's like challenge me. Like I am hiring you as an advisor to basically challenge every single decision I'm making. That's what our relationship is here. Or then there are sometimes you just want people in your court that are just telling you how to do things, that you're doing it well, a different type of relationship. But yeah, it usually evolves out of seeing people that are then a little further along than you in your journey, either again following them, reaching out to them, having a couple calls. If they like what you're doing, they're going to want to keep in touch with you as well, and then seeing how that kind of can move forward.
Yeah. Okay, that makes good sense. Right. I think it's one of the things that's always a little bit hard, and I think it's a really good point that you want to um have people where you trust their advice, right? When I have
Yeah.
potential clients reaching out to me, I'm also like, I always do a discovery call, like a 30-minute free call to figure out because it doesn't benefit me nor them if
Yeah.
there's not a, I'm gonna say chemistry, but it's kind of a
Yeah.
bad way of saying it, but it doesn't make sense because
Yeah.
they're not gonna trust my advice and I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna have a really hard time helping them, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
for any kind of relationship, whether it's a client based or a mentor or anything, basically, there needs to be some level of trust. And I think the more desperate people become in their search for a job or mentors or funding or whatever it is, the less critical they become of this. That's my experience
Mm.
at least. And that's really a shame because it's almost like that's where you need to become even more focused and even more critical to make sure that the people you're working with are the right people. Because
Yeah.
if you're on top of having your original problem, also are starting kind of to downward spiral mentally because things are not working out, it really needs to be someone when you're working with someone that can actually boost you up as well, right? That
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
help you into that. And that's
Yeah.
also something that you can get from the network when you know people a bit more at least. And that's why the relationship building, in my opinion, is also super, super important.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Good point about when people are getting more desperate, that their judgment is not as clear.
Mm.
And then they may be surrounding themselves with people that aren't actually adding the right value, but are just perhaps even just capitalizing on the fact that that person's in a desperate situation. So it is good to also reevaluate from time to time if the people that you are receiving advice from are the right people, and it's okay to kind of stop, like pause some of those relationships, or just say, you're not going to do the weekly calls or any or things like this for some time, and then return back to it when it feels right, or if it feels right again.
Yeah, because you also sometimes you outgrow one mentor or
Yeah.
a network, and you're like, well, we all grow in different directions, right? So it's also about changing and keeping it to match where you're going in general.
Yes.
So that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, there are so many other questions, but I'm also kind of blanking at the same time. It's a weird
No worries.
mismatch in my head. But I'm kind of thinking, I would love to know, like, is there anything when we're talking about networking and connecting and stuff that we haven't spoken about yet, where you're feeling like either you have some really good advice or something like that you feel like we haven't talked about yet?
Mm. I guess maybe just to I'll like continue telling my story a little bit. So like I told you what happened when I moved to Berlin and I reached out to these like 20 something founders. And something that I guess this also was the same sort of strategy. Like something I had to do in that program was do a lot of market research for my product. And in that, I did it all via basically cold LinkedIn requests as well. So what's so great about cold linked, like just LinkedIn in general, is that there's a profile behind that message. So if people see the connection request and they see who I am, that adds legitimacy. So it all helps as you build your profile and you have more connections and you have more followers or you're putting out good content, that when you make a request, someone's like, oh, okay, this person is legit for whatever makes you legit, whatever
Yeah.
your field is, but you're not just sort of this like spam connection, I think. And that I that makes the cold LinkedIn request success rate so high versus a cold email, which it's like, who is this? Like who is this person that's cluttering my inbox? I have no idea. I there's just it's anonymous more or less versus the LinkedIn, you have like a face with a profile. So I think that's why it does really well. And when I came to Lisbon, and I did the same thing basically all over again. I had a new network, and I also didn't know what I was going to do in my career at that moment because I had wrapped up my business that I was running in Berlin for 4 years, and I moved to Lisbon, and I was just freelance working because I do, as I already mentioned, I'm an advisor to lots of startups. I mentor founders, and I'm a writer as well. And so wanted to explore the Lisbon ecosystem. I was like, what is happening in this startup ecosystem here? So instead of just talking to biotech founders, I was messaging everybody who had founder, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, builder, whatever in their in their profile, and asking them again to have coffees. Just and that one was even just like, hey, I'm new here. I know that like I would love to have a coffee and learn about your take on the Lisbon startup ecosystem. And this was awesome because this led me to meet some of the most connected people in the Lisbon ecosystem. And then they met me and then they did exactly this. They're like, "Oh, I just met Nina. You need to meet her because she's here and she wants to get stuff moving and she's really excited." And it was quite unbelievable how that like the first domino fell and things started working out and I was getting invited to cool events and again having serendipitous relate like meetings with people where I would just was standing next to this woman. She had cool earrings. I complimented her earrings. And
Of
then
course.
turns out her brother is one of the most connected people in the Lisbon startup ecosystem. So she was like, you have to meet my brother. Now her brother and I have, yeah, we've been connected in Lisbon for 3 years. He just invited me to speak on a panel next month for health and wellness. So these things, yes, it's 3 years later, but these types of relationships are so important because I mean, you never know what will happen. And so sometimes you think about an immediate value add, and sometimes it's okay to just not be so certain on what that, other than curiosity, what that immediate value add is. And then as they watch your career develop, as you help them by making connections, things like this can happen where, this, this one entrepreneur, like he knows he can count on me to be a good speaker on a panel. So it's just like, hey, do you have time to do this? Happy to do this for you. So yeah, I think there's like letting the serendipity happen, building up your LinkedIn profile so that you look legit and people want to connect with you, and doing it in a very like honest and authentic way because these things also take time, which is something that you can try and hit hyper speed like what I did where it's like, okay, I'm going to send a bunch of connection requests out, but there's only so much you can do as a human before you're going to fatigue on the networking as well. So when I did the 50 founder, like the 50 coffees with 50 founders in 50 days, I only did one, maybe a second coffee in a day. It was too much. It became, I would dread it if I was going to do five or something. It just wasn't fun. So knowing that even doing 50 in 50 days is kind of outrageous. It's like a bit too
It's a
much.
lot.
It's a lot. But some people really think that they'll say, oh, I want to do 50 in 5 days. You're like,
You're not going to
you're
remember
gonna
people.
you're not gonna remember, yeah, you won't remember the people. You're going to resent it by the end, and you may not, yeah, you may not take in the information properly to be able to have a benefit from like those interactions you're having with people.
No, I think it's a really good point too, because also like you were saying a bit earlier that I'm also very extroverted, and the trap that I fall in is to overbook things, right? And then I'm also super future focused and very not like past and present focused.
Mm,
So that's a huge trap for someone like me to be like, yeah, this is amazing. I'm just going to plan all of these things. And then I forget to kind of take the value really out of it at the same time. So it's something that I know that I need to work on, that I need to kind of focus on to create the best things for both myself and also the people I connect with, right? And I think you're
mhm.
mentioning something super important here when you're saying in terms of, you've said it a couple of times actually, but when reaching out, the message in terms of what is it that's connecting you. So always have that, like the
Mhm.
interest for the startup community, or the fact that you are a scientist, or
Yep.
you're both from the US, or it can be these tiny things,
Hmm.
but just the fact that you can connect over something small can be what gets you in the door,
Yeah.
basically, when you reach out to people, right? So the stronger the connection, or the stronger the thing that you can connect about, the better, of course. But sometimes it can also just be something that is a bit smaller. And yes, 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 please fill out your LinkedIn profile and
Oh, yes.
be visible. Like you're saying with your 50, I was going to say 50 dates, 50 coffee meetings
Yep.
with 50 people, right? It's like, and writing that article about it, doing those LinkedIn posts. And if you're not good at writing, then maybe you're good at being on video. If you're not good at that, maybe you're good. Like, figure out what is it that you enjoy doing in a way that makes you visible in a value creating way for
Yeah.
the people you want to connect with. Because you don't need to be value creating for me if I'm not your target audience, but you need to be
Hmm.
value creating for the people you want to connect with.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
think that is super important.
And I know not everybody wants to become a content creator. And and it's also like, this is fine. But what's really great about LinkedIn at the moment is it's sort of the wild west of the social networks. And it's still this, I think it's the last genuine social network because it's not flooded with influencers. It's still very professional. People have their real names, their real profiles, what they're doing on it. And not a lot of people are creating good content. So if you do want to take to posting on LinkedIn, try to put out a post, like put one out once a month, put it out once a week, put it out three, then you start to build on it. I didn't post every day when I started posting on LinkedIn. I was posting once a week for probably like 2 years, and then I did 3 times a week for about a year. And just this year, I started posting every day, and that's what the algorithm likes. It's just going to tell everybody that that's the hack is to post every day. But what's great about LinkedIn is once a day. No one wants to hear from you more than once a day. It's too much. It becomes noise. It's not like Instagram. It's not like TikTok where you need to do 6 times a day to go viral. So if you just post about interesting things you're learning about at work, that's interesting to someone that's a little bit junior to you, or that's interesting to your colleagues. It doesn't have to be this dissertation, like you said. It can just be, I met with Diana today and we had a really cool conversation. And here's like the top 3 networking tips that came out of that conversation. And it's like screenshot of our conversation with right now, and that's it. And people love that. And with all the AI slop that's on the internet nowadays, the more human you can be, the better. So, images of you as a real person chatting with another real person is super valuable. And then sharing your own personal story is what's going to differentiate you from the AI because the AI doesn't have a personality. They don't have a history of experiences that they get to talk about. So the more that you can share that, the more your posts are going to perform well. And lucky for us, we have tons of experiences and tons of stories to share. It's just working that muscle and recognizing the stories that need to be told. Like I didn't realize that a photo of me pushing some bags into SFO with saying, "Hey, I moved to Europe and I didn't know a single person," was going to be that was going to go viral. But that's I don't know. That's the internet for you.
Yeah, It really is.
Yeah.
And I think last like thing to add on that is also that when you're then looking for a job, the fact that you've been posting all of these things is also where a potential future employer can go in and see, oh, you actually know something about what it is
Yeah.
that you are talking about. And even if you're currently employed, you don't have to be open about the fact that you're job searching. You can still share these things because people will that will bring value to a current employer because it can be seen that they are employing amazing people, right? So
Yeah.
don't be afraid to go out there and have a voice, and you can use that to kind of, yeah, connect with people as well.
Absolutely. This is the best. I can't even say how much value it adds to be visible online. Somebody that has 100,000 followers on LinkedIn is the biggest threat to a company because they have options. Like if I want to go out and get a job right now, I just write it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'll have a flood of
Yeah.
DMs,
Yeah.
which is amazing. And if I get very specific, it's like, I want to do this for some company, I'm sure that somebody is going to DM me, which is wild to believe. And that's the effect that you want to have. And so it should also be in the company's best interest to keep you happy
Mm.
as an employee if you're basically doing free PR for them.
PR. Yeah, exactly.
And some companies are more keen to this than others. I think startups are they're actually leveraging this. Like there are startups that are rewarding their employees for writing online daily about their experience working at that company. And there are other companies that are much larger corporates that want you to put a disclosure at the end of your profile that say, these are my thoughts and are not the thoughts of XYZ
Yeah.
Corporation, which is also fine. They have to
There could
protect
be
themselves
legal
legally.
reasons. Yeah.
There could be legal reasons that your opinions are too strong for them, but I think it will. I do not think it's going to be a negative thing. And also, if
No.
you're an entrepreneur and you want to start raising money and you've been writing about your company and company building for years, people feel like they know you. So then when you do reach out cold to them to pitch them about your business, they're like, oh my God, I've been following your journey for 3 years. I'm so excited to finally talk to you. What's going on? How can I help? And that's so much warmer than, reaching out to them out of the cold.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree.
Good.
So, Nina, if because we're running out of time now, so if people do want to reach out, connect, find you, where would they do that?
So LinkedIn is my primary social media platform. So you can find me on LinkedIn, just like linkedin.com/Nina Patrick. I also write a weekly newsletter called Nina's Notes, which is about health, longevity, psychedelics. You'll find that at www.ninasnotes.xyz. Or you can also find me on my website, ninapatrick.xyz, and that's where you'll find speaking opportunity. If you want to get in touch with me about speaking opportunities, mentorship opportunities, my blog is over there as well. You can subscribe to the newsletter. I also have lots of guidebooks that I've created about longevity, about other types of like startup tools. And that's pretty much that's how you could get in touch. So feel free to DM me on LinkedIn. I read them all, but I sometimes it is a jungle. But I do promise to get back to you if you message me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And if you do message Nina because you've heard her in this interview, please let her know that that's where you
Yes,
heard about her, because that's also really nice to know where people are coming from in
yes.
general. So that would be amazing. So thank you so much, Nina. This has been
Thank you.
really, really interesting. And I've definitely learned some new things as well, or some new approaches. So I'm sure that this will be very, very helpful for a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Diana, for having me. I'm excited to see the final episode aired and reply to anybody that sends a message my way. Thanks again.